So we had a comment today from someone in our meditation group who was talking about how something happened to her while she was at home and her mind started to spiral and she started to feel agitated and guilt, and she described it as these things started to pile on, and so she noticed that she was more prone to anger towards her husband, and towards the end of the night she was able to practice some meditation lying down and get some relief. So in response to this, and this isn't really a question, but in response to this, I want to bring up different stages of right effort. So right effort it's a factor on what's called the Noble Eightfold Path, and in other words, it's a step or stage on the path to peace, and it's one that is not given too much shine or love. It's hardly mentioned. Mindfulness is mentioned everywhere. It's a very popular term, but right effort actually precedes right mindfulness. So it's absolutely foundational. And essentially let's break up right effort, to be brief, into two sections. So on the one side, it's the prevention of unskillful qualities of mind. And on the other side, it's the development of skillful qualities of mind. In other words, it's the practice of and the strength in and the ability of being able to prevent and abandon unskillful qualities of mind, or things that are not helpful, unhelpful emotions, unhelpful thoughts, unhelpful actions. And it's the giving birth to and developing skillful, helpful thoughts, emotions, words, actions. And I like to describe what it's like when you deepen right effort, and this is not something that's based on any text or spiritual teaching, it's just from my own experience. So in the beginning, we can say one stage is that we're not aware of right effort. So as we go about our lives, we're like ships being tossed here and there by the storm. And then, if we're lucky enough, if we're very fortunate, we'll hear about the teachings. And so we might gain some understanding. Okay, I actually am meant to put forth effort into preventing and abandoning unskillful, unwholesome qualities of mind like fear, doubt, anger, etc. And yes, I am meant to, with intention, with energy, with effort, give birth to wholesome qualities of mind and then develop them to their fullest extent. So we hear the teachings, but we're not able to use them. Basically, we know that they're there, so what ends up happening is when bad things happen, we still react, but maybe later on we remember, oh, maybe I should have used right effort. Then we go on to another stage where sometimes we're actually able to use right effort. In the moment, boom, right there, anger arises, and we're actually aware enough to feel the heat rising in the body, to feel tension, to feel the muscles in the face start to tense up, and we know we're about to say something that we'll later regret, and we're able to, boom, turn it off. And then we experience peace, we experience triumph, joy. And this may only happen a small percentage of the time, but that's the next stage where actually we're able to see here and there that we do have control. We're starting to gain some semblance of dignity. Just to get to that point, I think is a huge leap forward. From here, I think the work gets very interesting. And I think a lot of people, if they can practice for a little bit, they can get to this stage. So from here, where do we go from here? One revelation that was really helpful for me is simply that every time we choose to be overtaken by that hindrance, by that emotion, we're choosing more suffering for ourselves. And this is something you can hear and maybe it sounds wise and novel, maybe it sounds very mundane and typical. But you need to feel this. You need to feel this in your bones. Every time I engage in what is unskillful, I suffer. I suffer here and now, and I suffer later. I cause suffering for others. And if we practice enough, we'll start to build conviction of this in our hearts. We'll just have a strong sense, with less and less doubt. So to color this with an example, often when we feel anger, it's righteous anger. Where right, that person is wrong. There's a righteousness to it. And there are many righteous causes out there. I remember a friend of mine who also practices in our group talking about how he had a neighbor with a bug zapper. And this friend is very passionate about the plight of the earth and the environmental crisis, this climate crisis. And very well aware that we need bugs, that bugs are actually a really important part of our ecosystem. And just, so when he saw that neighbor with that zapper, and every time he'd open his door at night, he'd hear the bugs hitting the light and dying, it enraged him. So again, even here, there's that sense of righteousness. But if you can see that, if you can put aside that righteousness and just see, it hurts me to feel this anger. It's a darkness in my soul. And to feel that, to know that, once you get to that point, right effort becomes easier. And we can consider that the noble ones, they have to deal with the same crap that we do. A fully awakened being does not get to manipulate the world. Even the Buddha had debilitating back pain throughout much of his life. So it's not that they fix everything externally in their lives, but somehow they do not suffer. And it's because they've tamed the mind, and they've understood deeply what is helpful, what is not helpful. And the Buddha, in fact, said that before his awakening, a big turning point in his practice was when he drew a line on the sand and he said, this is helpful, this is not helpful. He realized it. To do X, Y, and Z, to engage in the hindrances is not helpful. To engage in aversion, pushing things away, or desire, pulling things towards oneself, that causes pain. This clinging causes pain. And to engage in things such as right effort, right mindfulness, samadhi, or the unification of the heart, this leads to pleasure, to peace. That was a huge breakthrough for him. And we need to realize, no matter what is said right now in this session, when we go out into the world, we very well may meet with things that are very unpleasant or intoxicatingly desirable. We may meet a storm, and in the midst of that storm, whether it's anger or fear or anxiety, whatever it is, whatever stories there may be going on in our minds, one story may start to ring louder, and that is, if I continue with this, if I indulge in this, I will suffer more than I'm suffering now. I will continue to suffer. I will plant the seeds for future suffering. So we can turn the tide. We can get to another stage where some of the common culprits in our lives, the things that really bother us regularly, we've become so familiar with their faces that we know what to do as they arise and they rear their head. This is a skill. We can become so skillful at dealing with this. For me, the fifth hindrance of paralytic doubt and anxiety is one that's tormented me my whole life. Still torments me. And it brings, but it's a beast that I know well now. It has a certain resonance to it. It has an energy in the body, a certain energy signature. And for me now, at the stage I'm in, I know that when it comes, there's nothing I can do to run from it. I cannot run from it. The aversion I may have only feeds it. So if I'm interested in starving it, I have to stop. Whatever I'm doing, I have to stop. And I have to meet it head on. And this is just one strategy that has worked very well for me. So remember, we want to play and experiment with what might work for us. But for me, I need to breathe it. I need to bring it closer. So I practice breathing it in. Breathing in the anxiety, the doubt, letting it come into my being, inviting it in, opening the door to the demon, allowing him to come in and make himself at home, giving him a room to stay in, over and over again, fighting the impulse to shoo it away, allowing it, being with it. And when I do this, the demon comes and he goes of his own accord when he's ready. So I mention this just to say that we can develop a skillfulness in certain pathways, a strategy that we can become confident in. And of course, there are stages above this, but in the interest of time, I'll pause here. So I offer this for your reflection and hope that it's helpful.